I feel like the reason why I cover pregnancy horror so often is just for like physical proof that I do not want children ever. Hey there, creepy peeps. I'm Nightmare Maven. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I talk about horror movies, books, other spooky stuff all year round, so if you end up liking this video, maybe subscribe. Directed by Michelle Garza Cervera, Huesera follows Valeria, who becomes pregnant but soon after realizes she's being haunted by a sinister entity. This is gonna be a spoiler-filled review because I absolutely have to gush about this movie, so if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. Just do yourself a favor, go watch it and then come back to this video. But on the surface, Huesera ticked all of the boxes of like pregnancy / motherhood horror. It's got the body horror aspects of being actually pregnant and the complete and utter trauma of pushing a small human out of yourself, plus the terror of just being a new parent. And I went into the movie thinking that the entity was gonna be like your typical, oh, she's scared of motherhood storyline where eventually she'll learn that she is gonna be a good mom or whatever, how they always end, you know? But Huesera goes a different route. Valeria is someone who is performing heteronormativity through this act that she wants to have a child at all. When the movie opens, Valeria visits this like giant statue of the Virgin Mary with her mother to pray for a baby. The camera pans out to see this whole statue, which is golden and pristine and surrounded by like spokes that like represent like sun rays, you know, like it's meant to be like it's like shining from behind her. And to start the movie off like this, it's just like immediately the way society puts pregnancy on a pedestal. Not women or uterus owners or birthing persons, but pregnancy. Like the societal upholding of this one body function. This kind of like sunburst kind of imagery is seen throughout the movie. So in a couple of different places in Valeria's apartment, she has this pattern that she uses a lot. It's like a square and there's a circle in the middle and there's like spokes coming from it, right? It kind of looks like a sun and rays. And quite a few times in the movie, Valeria is seen within this pattern, and this view of Valeria can be seen one of two ways. Obviously, you can equate it to that view of the Virgin Mary statue we saw where it's Valeria's face in the center and there's just sun rays coming from it, like she's being put on this pedestal because she is going to be a mother, and that's the most important thing you can be if you have a uterus. But it can also be seen as oppressive, like Valeria stuck in this circle and there's like jail bars surrounding her. Which brings me to the real villain of this movie, and that is the pressure of motherhood from society, not the pressure of being a mother, even if you want children. So we see this in the imagery used in the film like I just discussed. We also see it in the various characters. Valeria's partner Raul is just fucking awful, I have to say. And it kind of starts off like your typical pregnancy horror movie where literally nobody believes Valeria. Anytime she is very clearly traumatized or terrified, they either gaslight her, they brush her off, or Raul even gets mad at her like multiple times, which is, I don't know, it's like the biggest red flag. They only show her affection when she's acting like she's excited about being a mother. And then you have Valeria's family who immediately criticize her actually. Like nobody's super excited for her. They all criticize her because at one point in her life she was not good with a kid, and so therefore she could never be a good mom, and that's like that's their biggest criticism of her. Again, going back to this idea that if you have a uterus, your one and only function is being able to pop out crotch goblins. Even Valeria's, I'm just gonna refer to her as her ex-girlfriend, we don't really know, but Octavia judges her also a little bit for conforming, and we see in this flashback in the movie that this like anti-conformist idea was something that was once important to Valeria, and we see that she chooses to go off to college. So her parents will approve of her, and we don't know what happens while Valeria is at college, but at some point she meets Raul and she decides to give in to like familial pressures of starting a family. And finally, we have the vicious entity, which is like the whole point of the movie. It has a super interesting duality if we're talking about like the themes of the movie here. So let's talk about the bone woman mythology really quick. This Mexican myth is about a woman who collects animal bones, specifically from wolves, until she has a complete skeleton. She sings life into the bones, bringing the creature back from another realm, and it runs free toward an open horizon, sometimes transforming into the shape of a woman. So the bones are meant to represent the life force within us that doesn't want to be tamed. And La Huesera seeks to restore what is lost, i.e. Valeria's freedom. The wolf imagery is also pretty important, as spiritually wolves can be used to represent trusting your own instincts, teaching us that we have control over our own lives, and that comes more into play with the conclusion of the film. But before we get to that, Valeria seeks out help from these healer women to help her like get rid of the entity surrounding her, because she realizes it's putting herself and her newborn at risk. So they do this dark ritual, and Valeria has a, I'm just gonna call it like a vision for want of a better term. That's like her healing journey. So within this vision, she meets with this entity, which we see throughout the movie. It kind of takes the form of a woman who's like contorting to this terrible symphony of bones breaking and popping. So Valeria sees this in her vision in the form of like multiple bodies doing this, and it's terrifying. And within the vision, they overcome her and start breaking her bones repeatedly. And at first I'm like, the literal manifestation of Valeria being broken down by this heteronormative society and these expectations of her. Oh my God. And this is supported by this bad habit that Valeria has throughout the movie. Whenever she's stressed or scared or feeling anxious, she like pops her knuckles and cracks her back. And maybe it can kind of be seen as a bit of like an act of like self-punishment to mirror what society is doing to her. But then on the other hand, you have Hueseros, who are traditional healers through the form of bone setting as like a type of folk medicine. As I was reading about them, kind of sounds like early chiropractors and physical therapists, which is kind of cool. But it's essentially the art of like manipulating joints and bones and the body to heal as a form of therapy. So in this, again, ritual of sorts, Valeria's bones are broken, and it seems horrible and she's screaming, of course, but it's meant to heal her. It's like breaking a bone to reset it the correct way, you know? What happens to her when she awakes the next day and she's free and she's sure of her path. Back to the wolf imagery and the freedom of will. The film ends with Valeria leaving Raul and her daughter. It's bittersweet. Valeria is sad, but she knows that this is what's not only best for her, but best for her child. It's a beautiful ending. I can't think of a single other pregnancy horror movie that didn't end with the woman eventually accepting her role as a mother. Sometimes that's just not the case, and it was really refreshing to see this other type of ending, which is also just as realistic as the other ones. I also loved the representation of these women in Valeria's life that also don't conform to this heteronormative society. Of course, we have Octavia, who is Valeria's, I'm just calling her ex-girlfriend, whom Valeria still loves and has sex with a couple of times throughout the movie, because Octavia still thinks Valeria is sexy and hot even when she's pregnant. The same cannot be said for Raul. Again, another red flag. There's also her spinster aunt, which is what Valeria's mom calls her, because she's single, possibly queer. I think there was a hint at that in the movie, but definitely single, doesn't have a husband, doesn't have children, so therefore is a spinster according to Valeria's family. And the aunt's friends, who are these like healing women. And I love the representation of them, like both being afraid of and seeking out these dark forces in order to heal and help people. It's kind of a great nod to traditional medicine before white men all took over and proclaimed themselves doctors and called all the healer women witches and had them killed. Ooh, okay, so I think it's really clear that I loved this movie. I think it is a beautifully haunting film about this toxic pedestal that society places motherhood on, just places the uterus on, I should say. Like that, let's be real. Especially in this country that I live in, I'm not a human, I'm a single organ. And I rarely like pregnancy and motherhood horror movies because they fucking terrify me. But this one I loved. And I feel like there are still like layers upon layers of things that I might have missed and didn't pick up on. So I am going to watch this many times again. This would also be a great Does This Offend You film. I'm gonna log that in our notes for later. So if you've seen Huesera, let me know in the comments what you thought about it. Ended up liking this video, give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out. And subscribe, become a creepy peep today. I post videos every week, all about horror, scary stuff. So I will see you this Friday with a new video. Until then, stay strange. Bye.